next lady who's going to be talking to you is someone that I met about a year and a half ago while I was in Phoenix, Arizona at a huge rally there. Some of the people in this room attended that one as well. And when I met her, I was blown away with her accomplishments and her integrity. She is, among her many accomplishments, she has been served on the in the Nevada Assembly from 1990 to 2007, and she is also the president of the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. Quite an accomplishment. There's her fan club over there. She has done many, many other things, but the thing that you will probably most remember her for is that she actually stood up and challenged Majority Senator Harry Reid. Please welcome Sharron Angle.
And if that bothers you, well, that's too bad. But if you got pride and you're proud to do it.
Thank you.
Hey, we could use
such a pleasure to be here in the Live Free or Die state. I am so excited about what I see in this room. Many people come to see me just to make sure I'm not as ugly or as big or as crazy as the press made me out to be in 2010. I didn't start out to be a politician. I actually grew up in Reno, Nevada, went to college to be an artist, and met a fellow in my senior year, decided to get married, changed my major from art to education, realizing that I wasn't going to those wonderful far-off places like Paris and New York City and Rome. I was going to be in Ely and Winnemucca and Tonopah. And I spent 25 years raising my family in the rural outback of Nevada. My son, who's my youngest, failed kindergarten. And at that point, I decided, being an educator, I'd fix this. I'd take him home and homeschool him. And that's when I met a judge that said, I know it's the law in Nevada that you can homeschool your children, but the law should say you can homeschool your children if you live more than 50 miles away from the nearest school. That's when the government got into my family, and that's when I realized I need to be more than just a voter, and I know that most of you have realized that too. That if you want to be the solution to the problem, you're going to have to get more engaged than just going to the ballot box. You're going to have to be more informed, in fact. And that's when I realized that all politics is local. It's that local school board member that's going to make a difference in your life. It's that local commissioner that's going to change what's going on your street, whether your garbage gets picked up or whether your street gets plowed or fixed. It's our day-to-day life that's run by your local politicians, and that's why I would encourage every one of you to run for something local. I did. I waited till my children were a little older, and then I ran for a school board. And I sat on that school board for a term until my husband's job changed, and we had to move into Reno, that metropolitan place that was a little larger than most of the cities that we had lived in before. It was at that point that my son, the one who failed kindergarten, went off to get his master's degree. And he was still single, so I said, honey, if you would move home, it would be a lot more fiscally prudent for our family if you would just come home while you're getting that degree. And he said, I will, Mom, on 2 conditions. The first is that you get a life. And I said, really? And he said, and the second is that it's not me. So at that point, I knew that my children didn't need me anymore, and I ran for the state legislature. I would encourage you all that's part of the solution. Part of the solution is not just being involved, but being involved in an elective office, or at least helping someone get to that elective position. Because if you don't like what's going on, it doesn't do you any good to sit back here and complain about it. The only place that you're going to make a difference is by actually doing it. Now, I get asked a lot, 2 questions. The first question is, what's Sharron Angle doing now? And the second question is, did Harry Reid steal the election? I have brought a little short film clip. It's called Fraud. And I wanted you to watch it a little bit before we go on with those 2 questions.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess. Properly done, it's the perfect crime.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
And I handed that in to Mrs. Yang and said, here's your report, here's your program. And she said, you don't understand, we need to hide the fraud in the source code.
Hide the fraud, not reveal the fraud.
Not reveal the fraud, because we needed to control the vote in South Florida.
We found hundreds of people that had voted from empty buildings. We found one incident where hundreds of people had voted from one apartment. We found vacant buildings and empty lots that had people that had voted. Most significantly, we found 600 people who were in prison that voted on election day at polling places. The judge had the audacity to tell us, yes, but you don't know who they voted for.
The Palmetto State's Attorney General saying more than 900 of the voters in the recent elections were actually dead people.
In researching Harris County, in one house there was 19,000 registered voters.
No matter what state they were in, people were committing the same types of voter registration fraud. There's no way that you can know how to do that unless you've been trained. It wasn't just dead voters and Mickey Mouse. It was going systematically through the phone books. It was registering people twice. It was making up phone numbers and addresses and signing the cards because they needed each card. So I saw all of this.
I think it might be a little bit intimidating that you have a stick in your hand. That's why. You know?
Mr. Curtis, are there programs that can be used to secretly fix elections?
Yes,
How do you know that to be the case?
because in October of 2000, I wrote a prototype. It would flip the vote 51-49 to whoever you wanted it to go to and whichever race you wanted to win.
And would that program that you designed be something that elections officials that might be on county boards of elections could detect?
They'd never see it.
This is a Diebold AccuVote TS electronic voting machine. Our vote-stealing software can tell that the worker is doing logic and accuracy testing. It allows the pretend votes to be counted correctly so that the machine passes the test. He inserts the voter card into the machine. There are 2 candidates for president, George Washington and Benedict Arnold. The voter chooses George Washington. The machine asks him to confirm his vote, and he does so. 4 more voters cast their votes. They vote for George Washington, Benedict Arnold, George Washington, and George Washington. An election worker approaches the machine, inserts a supervisor card. The tape shows that Benedict Arnold won the election, 3 votes to 2. The memory card, when examined by technicians, also shows that Benedict Arnold won the election, 3 votes to 2. Every record kept by the voting machine shows the same fraudulent result. When the election ends, the vote-stealing software can delete itself from the voting machine. No evidence remains that the machine was ever hijacked. Anyone who has access to a voting machine for a few minutes can install malicious code. In advance, we prepare a memory card containing our malicious software. When we get a few minutes alone with the machine, we first open the side door. There are thousands of keys in circulation, and any hardware store will copy them. Even without a key, the lock is easily picked. One member of our team can consistently pick the lock in less than 10 seconds and insert our prepared memory card. We press the power button to boot the machine. When the machine boots, it will automatically install our malicious software for us. We remove our memory card, replace any card that was there before, and close the door. The total elapsed time is less than 1 minute. Memory cards act as carriers for the virus. When a memory card is inserted into an infected machine, the machine copies the virus onto that memory card. If the memory card is removed and later put into another machine, the virus spreads from the memory card to the new machine, so that every machine that catches the virus will steal votes.
It's interesting to note that there's empty booths there for regular ballots. This is all provisional.
Hanako Danette is not a U.S. citizen, yet the Cape Coral resident is registered to vote. NBC2 found Danette after reviewing her jury excusal form. She told the clerk of court she couldn't serve because she wasn't a U.S. citizen. But we found her name and nearly 100 others like her in the database of Florida registered voters. Samuel Lincoln is not a U.S. citizen either. The Jamaican national says he doesn't know how he ended up registered to vote. County supervisors of elections tell me they have no way to verify citizenship. Under the 1992 motor voter law, they're not required to ask for proof.
In the general, I was polling several races, both Republican and Democrat. We were polling countywide races. We were polling the U.S. Senate race. And one of the things that did not look right in Clark County is I was off on every single race by the same percentage. And that is a mathematical improbability.
Linda Payne, founder of the Election Integrity Project, or EIP, has organized and conducted training sessions for thousands of volunteers.
This is going to be fixed. It's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question. If not now, when? If not us, then who?
If not us, who? And so here's another solution. First, get involved, run for office, help those who do run for office. Secondly, you can be part of a project to clean up the vote in your state. It's happening all over. I hope that this guerrilla film kind of showed that. It happens all over to one extent or another. They used to say it's the +3 in Chicago, which means there's a 3% discrepancy. We know that in some states it's as much as 10%. That's our most basic right, is the right to vote. That's why so many people don't vote, it's because they don't think it counts. We've got to be part of that solution. We've got to make sure that your vote in New Hampshire counts, and there's ways that you can do that. You can do that. And my friend Linda Payne, she's willing to come and train any of you that would like to get involved in election integrity. It's not a Democrat problem. It's not a Republican problem. It's an American problem. And we need to be a part of that solution. Another part of the solution is that we need to get within our party and make sure that when we go to convention and bring in that great platform, that our politicians are actually running on the platform. And that's what the National Federation of Republican Assemblies is. We are the Republican wing of the Republican Party. In fact, 30 years ago, Reagan called us the conscience of the Republican Party. And I'm here this afternoon to talk to anybody that wants to know more about the Republican assemblies. We are the home of the Frederick Douglass Republicans. And I hope that that kind of sparks your interest and you say, well, what does that mean? That's exactly what we wanted to do, because we need to change the conversation. We need to not allow the press or anyone else to revert right to their paradigm. When we say we're a Republican, they say, well, I know what that means. Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't know that Frederick Douglass was a former slave and a lifelong Republican that believed in 4 principles: the Constitution, personal responsibility, the right to life, and limited government. oh my gosh, I think that's me. So you'll want to come to that meeting at 3:30 with all the others here in New Hampshire that are interested in what can happen when we work from the inside. We also at the National Federation of Republican Assemblies have been encouraging states to get involved in repealing Obamacare. And we know that there are 14 states that have exchanges. Nevada happens to be one of them. Our Republican governor was the first and only Republican governor at the time to bring Obamacare into the state and establish a state exchange. This year I helped legislators formulate legislation and run a bill to repeal Obamacare in our state. We get a lot of lip service, but we should say, where's the bill? Where's the action? I don't want to just see your mouth move, I want to see your feet. And so that's part of it. We need to get involved asking for action. Finally, I have a PAC. It's called Our Voice PAC. It's part of the National Federation, but not really. And the reason is because the IRS. We need to have a vehicle in which we can impact elections. PACs are not good or bad. They're just a vehicle. They're an IRS vehicle that allows us to collect money and use it at the federal level or at the state level in an impactful way. And some of the things we've been doing are the second clip, if you will, Mike. And this one you'll like.
We had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Here's why it matters. Because when they put out word that this was not a terrorist attack, it furthered the narrative that somehow Al-Qaeda was in disarray. And the fundamental question is, did the administration really believe that? Because if they did, they badly miscalculated. Or did they know it wasn't true, but for political reasons did not want that narrative out there?
What difference does it make?
It makes a difference to the American people, and it makes a difference overseas to the terrorists who did this.
Of course it matters. This administration consistently refuses to confront the reality of international terrorism.
It was Al-Qaeda, and it took this administration, 14 days during a campaign to admit that that was the case.
It makes a difference to the families of the 4 dead Americans.
It makes a difference to Pat Smith, still waiting to find out how her son Sean died. It would have made a huge difference to Ambassador Stevens had he been warned to prepare for an attack.
President Obama and Secretary of State Clinton engaged in a cover-up of monumental proportions.
An awful internet video.
Reaction to the video.
You had a video that was released.
This video. Obama was pushing the line that when he killed bin Laden, he killed Al-Qaeda. And if he admits that we were hit by this magnitude of a terrorist attack 2 months before the election, he would be in serious trouble.
What difference at this point does it make?
There are many unanswered questions here months after the tragic loss of 4 brave Americans.
Why, when it went down, when she was aware that there was an attack, why she did not immediately ask for urgent military help?
Where were the people who were at the embassy and then evacuated?
Why were so many warnings ignored by the State Department? We want the answers. This was all in the heat of a presidential campaign. A president who was campaigning saying, bin Laden is dead and Al-Qaeda's on the run. We know that's not true.
What difference at this point does it make? The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans.
The reason that Benghazi is still important now as a political issue is that the President of the United States was reelected in part because of a deliberate cover-up. And the word is cover-up. Did we just re-elect a President of the United States based on a lie?
What difference does it make?
She knew the facts.
That's a little long. We do 30-second ones, and we do them in different states. We were just in Delaware, in fact, fighting against Chris Coons with a 30-second ad showing him as a puppet on the lap of Harry Reid. we believe that the message has to go out to that uninformed public. And that's why third parties won't work, is because we have that uninformed voter on both sides, 30% that are just going to go vote because they have the R behind their name or the D behind their name. Those are the guys that we can't reach any other way than TV ads, and sometimes we're not even reaching them that way. But this is how we can use our political action. So I hope I've given you some ideas on how you can really be a part of the solution, how you don't have to go to Congress. You can stay right here in New Hampshire and do something that's very meaningful, impactful, and will actually secure the blessings of liberty for us and our posterity. God bless you, and God bless America.